Hello, today I am here with another instalment of my non-booktube book reviews, which is where I read a book a month that I haven't heard about on booktube and review it individually, because I think it's important to get conversation going and let people know about books that aren't necessarily getting as much attention as the hyped books. So this month's read was The Flame Alphabet by Ben Marcus. Now I will go into this by saying that this is the kind of book that I hoped I would find during this experiment. I thoroughly enjoyed this. It was a solid 4-star. It could have been a 5-star, but I think I have a feeling that it's not overly going to stick with me, but I really thoroughly enjoyed the reading experience of this. And I will also firstly say that the Goodreads ratings on this are so bad as to be really, really annoying, because I just don't think they're justified. They're predominantly 1 and 2 stars. I think its overall rating is like 2.8 or something. But this is a really good book and it's really bloody well written, so I don't understand why people don't like it. From looking through the reviews just briefly, because I was so shocked by the low average rating, a lot of people seem to say that it was, you know, the most boring thriller they'd ever read, but I don't think this is meant to be a thriller. It's just a literary dystopian novel. There's nothing thriller-esque about it, and I don't think it's ever been targeted as a thriller, so that was a bit of a strange criticism. So yeah, that kind of irritated me because I really don't think it's justified, which is why I'm kind of glad to be talking about this book and sort of telling you about it, and hopefully people will pick it up. So this is a dystopian novel about a world in which the language of children, to start with, becomes toxic. The kids are immune to language, but all the adults are getting iller and iller the more exposed they are to their teen or child's language. The situation progresses and all language becomes toxic, so it slowly kills people, and it's sort of almost described as like clouds of cancer in the air when people are speaking, and it's just, the concept alone was enough to completely sell me on this book. But the execution of it was fantastic. The only negative I would have of this is that the ending felt a bit rushed. So for the most part of the novel, you're sort of following probably a few months to a year. I would say it's certainly not a long period of time, but then towards the end you cover sort of a few years in a few pages, which, to be fair, it's not solely a criticism of this book. I think it's often the case for me in dystopian novels that I find the ends kind of rush over things a little bit. I found the same, one that comes to mind is Brand New World. I felt like the ending kind of, I liked the pace all the way through, and then the ending just went blah blah blah. I do find it's something that happens in dystopians, but I think the trouble is finding that balance between looking at the beginning of this epidemic and the effect that it has on the people who are just getting used to the situation, and then also looking at the long-lasting impact, which I think is equally important. But it's finding the balance between the two, and I don't know, I often think that dystopians do rush a little at the end. I would have also said that I would have liked not a rounded ending. I don't think a rounded ending would have suited this book, but just something slightly more, I don't know, slightly more complete, I suppose. I felt like the ending just needed a few more pages to just wrap things up a little neater. But that aside, I absolutely adored this book. I think if you like stories like LMNOP by Mark Dunn, this also had some hints of Flowers for Algernon for me by Daniel Keyes. I don't know why, because predominantly they're nothing to do with each other, but I think because it looks at language and the usage of language, and there are sort of hints in here that the people who are more intelligent and who understand more get iller faster because the words are loaded with more meaning for them, whereas the slightly slower people who don't necessarily grasp all the meaning, it sort of hints at the fact that they're deteriorating slowly. And it also goes on to look at playing with the alphabet and language and trying to work out how you can overcome this issue that nobody can speak, and it's just so fantastically done. I think especially given that for about half of this novel we're living in a world where nobody's speaking to each other because language is literally killing people. People are using language as weapons at one point, because we're in this test centre where they're trying to work a way around it, and they're using sort of people as test subjects and stuff, and it's not a very nice lifestyle. And the narrator Sam, he says that he kind of feels as though he could commit suicide by fairy tale, and I think that's so beautiful. I think anybody who likes language and likes books and likes playing with language, so any writers or even readers really, I think would really enjoy this and find something to like in it. I think the best way I can describe this, as I always say with beautifully written books, is to tell you a little bit of the language, and this will give you a sense as well of how gentle this is. This is not a fast-paced dystopian thriller, as a lot of people seemed to think it might have been. It's a really slow and gentle book, but it just is truly beautiful. So then came November's stay, a sweetly deluded phase of recovery that we fed with great doses of denial. But in Wisconsin there were early adopters, a fiendish strain of childless adults who consumed the toxic language on purpose, as a drug, destroying themselves under the flood of speech. They stormed areas high in children, falling drunk inside cones of sound. They gorged themselves on the fence line of playgrounds where voice clouds blew hard enough to trigger a reaction, sharing exposure sites with each other by code. Later, these people were found dried out in parks, on the road, collapsed and hardening in their homes. They were found with the slightly smaller faces we would routinely see on victims in only a few weeks. So it's all written like that. It's just so good. I would highly recommend, and as I say, I'm so glad that I started this experiment, because this was kind of one of the books that it's been on my shelf for about 6 years, and I've never gotten to the point where I was about to pick it up, so I thought, right, it's time. And I am so glad that I read this book. It's truly wonderful. So that is that one. Please let me know if you've read it down below. I'd love to speak to someone about this, because as I say, I've just not heard anybody speak about this. I think I've heard 1 or 2 people review other Ben Marcus books, but never this one. And as I say, I think it definitely needs more coverage and better reviews. So I will see you next time. Bye.